So, rock music part 2. Let's just pause there before we go any further. Okay, this is Cream playing in, I think, 1968, and there's been some developments in technology that has influenced the genre as well. Just look what's behind Jack Bruce there. This is a Marshall 100-watt amplifier. Until the invention of these amplifiers, this is a British make, Marshall. He had a music shop in London, and bands had been using AC30 amplifiers, which are great amplifiers and they're pretty loud anyway, but the Beatles particularly were noticing when they were playing to 2,000 screaming fans, they were struggling to kind of hear the guitars on stage. And so Pete Towns from The Who asked Jim Marshall to build a special kind of amp for him, and it was this 4 12-inch speakers you can see behind Jack Bruce there, but doubled up, so we've actually got 8 12-inch speakers. A 30-watt amp would only probably have 2 in there, and it's being powered by 100 watts of valve power, and this just means these amps are absolutely louder than anything anyone had ever heard before. And this is just for the bass. You'll see in a minute Eric Clapton's got a similar stack on the other side of the stage, and that's got an important influence on music. We'll talk about that in a minute. Let's have a listen though. Let's close the time. That's Eric Clapton playing a Gibson SG with his kind of Marshall stack as well. So the main consequence of this is, as we go into the latter part of the 60s, you get bands like The Who, like Cream, like the Jimi Hendrix Experience, and these are power trios. These are bands that don't basically need a rhythm guitar player. They don't need someone in the background. If this had been the Beatles, you might have heard John Lennon's rhythm guitar playing because of the power of the amplifiers. Now we can have bands where the main harmonic background is not chords but riffs. Eric Clapton most of the time is playing a single string riff that's played by Jack Bruce on the bass as well, much lower. And it becomes this thing where rock music is essentially about riffs played by guitar and bass in octave unison, and the structure of the song becomes that rather than a chord pattern. This is a very simple blue, almost a 12-bar blues type structure, and it's now about the power of the riff more than anything else. Let's have another listen. And the other thing that's helping this is they're not playing the semi-acoustic guitars that some of the early 60s bands favoured. The Beatles and even The Who were playing kind of semi-acoustic Rickenbackers and Epiphones and things like that, and Gretsch guitars, which are prone to feedback. Both the bass player and the lead guitar player here are playing solid-bodied Gibson guitars that have humbucker pickups as well. Humbuckers have twice the kind of power of single coil pickups, so add that to your 100-watt amplifier and you've got a pretty powerful package. The other ingredient in this, the other part of the power trio, is the drummer. Ginger Baker's quite at the forefront as well. If you notice, he's almost at the front of the stage with the other kind of 2 guys. He's not in the back on a pedestal, and there's something you might just see in the background here. Every part of his drum kit now is being picked up by ambient microphones. PAs were getting better as well. And even though this is a live performance, the drums are being mic'd as well. And that just means that this distinctive riff that he's got going on, where he's playing on the kind of the tom drums. I'm trying to find a little clip of him here. It's all about the kind of tom drums on this particular performance. It's got this kind of tribal feel, and he's pounding away on the he's got 2 floor toms there, and he's playing quite a lot on the rack tom. In an earlier kind of performance, those things just wouldn't have cut through the mix. You know, they'd have had to rely on the snare a bit more and the high frequency sounds of the hi-hat just to drive the groove. But because it's mic'd up, again, you can see the microphone there, it means drummers in the rock genre can play these slightly more kind of interesting, elaborate kind of rhythms and fills that take the drums into a different kind of territory. It's also got an unusual rhythm, this. I don't know if you noticed that the snare's kind of fallen on beat one, giving it again that kind of slightly more tribal feel. Notice a vocal arrangement thing going on here. There's no lead singer in Cream. Jack Bruce does most of the lead singing, the guy on the bass here, but he sings a line there and Eric Clapton over on the other side kind of answers him. And it's almost like there's two lead kind of singers, there's two stars of the show. And this is another feature that you see as we go into the rock genre as opposed to the 1950s genre where there was maybe one star. You've got the Beatles with Lennon and McCartney. You've got the Rolling Stones with Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, both vying for the spotlight. You've got Jack Bruce and Eric Clapton in Cream. And then later on we see bands, I don't know, like the Smiths, where you've got Morrissey and Johnny Marr, who are both as important as each other, or the Gallagher brothers in Oasis or something. Find your own examples maybe, where it becomes important to have two kind of features, often a lead singer and a lead guitar player, or two guitar players who are both kind of vying for the kind of spotlight a little bit. Rock bands tend to be slightly more democratic in that there's kind of more input from other people. They're not solo artists. However, we're talking about solos now because Eric Clapton's going to start playing a solo around about 2 minutes. It starts like this. This had been pre-rock era, that would have been the length of the guitar solo there. 12 bars is perhaps the most you're going to get. 8 bars even if it's an early kind of Beatles record or a Elvis Presley record or something like that. But he's only just warming up. He's done 14 seconds of riffing there, and this is going to go right through up until almost kind of 2 minutes later. He's still riffing at 2:44 there. Now at 3:09. 3:25. He's showing off. Notice it's not just him. The drummer's trying to kind of compete with him as well and kind of play off the kind of lead guitar. Just going back into the riff again for the last verse at 3:42. So he's soloed there for almost 2 minutes. And this is another feature of rock music. It becomes a little bit more instrumental. It's kind of an opportunity for virtuoso musicians to show off their kind of musical chops and impress the audience with their instrumental skill. It's not just about like perfect pop songs that only last 2 minutes and are full of vocal hooks and it's over before the DJ gets sick and takes the record off the air. Rock music was where maybe the album became more important, so people listening to kind of a full 20-25 minutes of music on an LP rather than a kind of single, and that allowed for bands to have longer tracks and show off their kind of instrumental skills a little bit more. I'll stay with you, darling, now. Stay with you till my season runs. So when you finish writing up this bit on Cream and looking for the kind of the new ideas that they're bringing to the table, I want you to start thinking about some bands that you like that are working in the rock genre style. They can be from later decades, the 70s, 80s, 90s, recently, wherever, who were kind of all about the kind of riffs, all about the kind of distorted guitars, all about the drums taking more of a kind of prominent role. Try and find 2 examples yourself. Maybe he's one from, I don't know, the 70s and one from the noughties, or one from the 80s and one from last year or something. And whatever's your taste, and just try and pinpoint yourself what to look for in the videos, so you're giving something back to me. I'm giving you Cream and the Beatles. Who are you going to give me in your section of your coursework? Hope you've enjoyed that. See you soon.